Hello, and welcome to another episode of MAE Speaker Series, Industry Insights from Gator Grads. My name is Jonathan Sheffy, an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and I'm excited to host today's session. Please let us know where you are all joining us from today, and feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. Today, we are joined by Stacey Evans and Judge Gardner at Southern Company Gas. Stacey Evans began her career as a recruiter for KPMG and then continued her career at Revlon in New York City, where she became the Senior Talent Acquisition Manager. From there, she moved to Atlanta, where she was a lead recruiter at Coca-Cola Enterprises. At Coca-Cola Enterprises, she was responsible for leading recruitment efforts for financing and accounting, legal, HR, and sales for all of North America while leading a team. Stacey joined Southern Company Gas in 2011, where she served as the consultant for engineering, construction operations, legal, human resources, regulatory, safety, finance, and field operations. In her current role, Stacey leverages her experience and passion for attracting and retaining top talent. She serves as a consultant to her client base regarding specific recruiting plans and retention strategies. Judge Gardner began his career as a project engineer at an engineering consulting firm based in Chicago, Illinois. There, he designed and managed various land development, engineering, and construction projects for the Chicago Public Schools, Public Building Commission of Chicago, and Illinois Department of Transportation. Judge joined Southern Company Gas in 2013 as an engineer, system planning and engineering, where he evaluated distribution and transmission pipelines, developed recommendations for pipeline system improvements, and supported various operating units in emergency response. In that time, Judge has held roles of increasing responsibility as a supervisor in field operations and system operations in various regions. In these roles, he supervised field personnel and successful operation and maintenance of the natural gas distribution infrastructure. In his current role, Judge leverages his field experience and passion for safety as manager of corporate safety, leading a team of field safety specialists to ensure that Southern Company Gas employees and customers utilize natural gas effectively. We are delighted to have Stacey Evans and Judge Gardner here with us to discuss their experiences from the field at Southern Company Gas. With that, I will hand it off to you, Stacey and Judge, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sheffy. Well, hello, everyone. It's exciting time to be here. And our goal today is to really tell you a little bit about our company and kind of the different paths that the engineers that you can take within Southern Company as a whole. So we're really excited to be here. Judge, I'm gonna let you start it off.
Yeah, so again, my name is Judge Gardner, everybody, and happy to be able to share a little bit about Southern Company with you guys this morning. So just a virtual information session here. So a couple things. Let me see if I can get my slide to work. So I guess first and foremost, just like to share with you guys a little bit about Southern Company and our family of companies as a whole. Primarily, we're broken down into four main groups. Our electric utilities, which is comprised of three operating companies: Alabama Power, Georgia Power, and Mississippi Power. We also have our other subsidiaries who mainly function as providing energy solutions and fiber optics and wireless communication installations. We also have our wholesale electric utilities, which is Southern Power, and they provide wholesale energy. And then lastly, the one that's near and dear to my heart, of course, is Southern Company Gas, which is comprised of several local distribution companies which provide natural gas transmission and distribution to various customers throughout the United States. So we serve about 4 states there with those 4 different local distribution companies. So from a diversity and inclusion perspective, a lot of things that we do here, we mainly try to focus on 3 large areas. And we like to call it the 3 Ps. Our people, which is defined here as our workforce. We like to target and recruit individuals who really fit with the Southern Company family and with the Southern Company family of companies, and what we like to do and how we like to serve our communities. Of course, the other P would be the public, which means our customers. Those are the individuals that we provide service to, that we provide both natural gas and electricity to throughout the southeastern portion of the United States, as well as the eastern seaboard and in the greater Chicagoland area. And lastly, the public. That's our community. That involves the individuals that we, not only the individuals that we serve, but we have a phrase and a terminology that we like to use here at Southern Company. And it goes as we envision and we endeavor to be citizens wherever we serve. Meaning that whenever we are invested in communities or wherever we serve and provide energy to those communities, we like to feel that we are wholly invested in those communities and that we're not just people selling energy there, but that we're actually citizens and walking hand in hand and working hand in hand with the customers that we serve. So that shares a little bit about who we are from a diversity and inclusion perspective. And I believe the next slide, Stacey, did you want to take this one or you want me to keep going here?
Go ahead and keep going.
Okay, awesome. So from electrical side, we do primarily four main things here. We generate energy using either natural gas fired power plants, of course, nuclear, and our coal-fired power plants, as well as the renewables. Then we transmit that energy through our lines, transformers, and our towers. Then we distribute it to our actual individual customers through substations and various other batteries and energy storage. And then we bring it to our customers, where we will sell it to our residential, industrial, commercial, and also do wholesale distribution of that energy to the folks that we serve. So for generation, I will hand off to my counterpart, Stacey, and she'll take us a little further in the presentation.
Thank you, Judge. So generation, it's making the power, right? And that goes by three different caveats of fossil natural gas and also nuclear and renewables. So we have a team of mechanics and electricians that support the daily maintenance and execution of making the power, right? We've had engineers that have started their career with Southern Company as a plant engineering co-op. And then from there, you know, it turns into something definitely bigger within the Southern umbrella. So opportunities are out there for you as well. So our company is one of the largest producers of electricity in the United States, right? So generation is the foundation of our business. We manage the operations of fossil, nuclear, and renewable facilities that safely produce clean, reliable, and affordable energy. So energy is critical to sustaining our importance of our business. That's really become clear. So although reliability is the primary focus for our generating facilities, COVID-19 really has proven our ability to adapt and operate under abnormal conditions, because that's what we're going through right now. So a career in generation can provide you with the stability during unstable times and the opportunity to provide a sense of normalcy to our 4.7 million customers from the electric side. Next slide, please, Judge. Okay. And so when we talk about the sources of generation, we're talking about renewables, we're talking about gas, coal, and nuclear. So today we generate approximately 27% of our electric power from coal, about 47% from natural gas, and then 15% from nuclear and 11% from renewables. So this is a vast change from 10 years ago when the system generated. And so when we talk about the sources of generation, I'm sorry?
You're not sure what happened. I think we may be good.
Okay. So what was I talking about? I was talking about some of the systems generate about 71% of its electricity from coal and only 11% from natural gas. So we have transformed our generation mix by investing about 20 billion in developing low carbon and carbon-free resources, and then increasing our nuclear generating capacity with the addition of 2 new units, and also investing in fuel cells and battery storage. So we've added more than 5,000 multiple weights of renewable capacity through our subsidiaries. And we expect to add an additional 3,000 of renewable generating capacity by 2023. So even though we are focusing on renewables, we are also improving our traditional generating process to become even more environmentally friendly at all of our plant locations. So some examples include the addition of HG reduction systems, ash ponds, water waste treatment facilities, and the development of process engineering positions to optimize these chemical processes. So we recognize field diversity is a key ingredient to meet long-term energy and environmental objectives by ensuring that there's a sufficient generation resource to avoid any reliability consequences. And so, next slide, please. So in order to obtain the energy mix, when you think about it, Southern Company Generation currently manages 103 power plants. And as you can see on this map, these are the different locations. So our judge talked about the three traditional electric utility companies that we have: Alabama Power, Georgia Power, and Mississippi Power, serving over 4 million retail customers that are primarily in Alabama, Georgia, and South Mississippi. However, we do have numerous facilities located in various states, as you can see on the bottom of this map, if you can, I don't know if you can see that. So these other facilities are part of Southern Power. I think, Judge, you mentioned Southern Power a little bit. So Southern Power is a leading wholesale energy provider that provides electricity to electric cooperatives, investor-owned utilities, commercial and industrial customers throughout the US. And so engineers at all of these sites work together by sharing lessons learned. They share best practices and innovative ideas to improve each other, plant safety, reliability, and overall cost as well. So although the fuel type might differ, the engineering positions at all of these sites are very similar. Next slide, Judge. And so when we talk about nuclear power generation, right, we want to focus really on the 104 commercial reactors. We've got 65 nuclear power plants. And so that's going to be safe, clean, and reliable energy. That's going to be to optimize the performance. That's going to be to design the reactor core, to ensure the equipment operation. And then from Southern nuclear facilities, really these being in Georgia and also Alabama. Next slide, please. And so with nuclear power generation, what you're looking at right here, the blue glow that you see, that's called, I don't know if I can pronounce this correctly, but I'm going to try, the Cherenkov radiation. So it's underwater sonic boom in a nutshell. It's caused by beta particles moving faster than the speed of light through the electromagnetic field of hydrogen and oxygen bond in water. Back to its original form, photons are released emitting a blue light, which I think is pretty cool. So all power plants convert heat into electricity using steam, right? And then this nuclear reactors produce about 20% of the electricity itself.
Wow.
Next slide, right? Next slide, please. And so nuclear power generation, this is just to show you the type of typical system diagram where you can see it starts from the rods to the pressure to the generator, going into the turbines, the condenser, and then making its way to our customers. Next slide, please. And this, we wanted to kind of show you a little bit of the equivalent of fuel equivalents to nuclear fuel source. So if you see that pellet right there, each of these fuels powers a home for about 75 days. That one uranium fuel pellet that you see. The equivalent of that would be 3 barrels of oil. The equivalent of that would be 5,000 pounds of wood. The equivalent of that would be 2,000 pounds of coal. The equivalent of that would be 17,000 natural gas, you know, when you think about it. So those fuel pellets are small, but they do a lot. Next slide, please. And then kind of wanted to bring this back to a day in the life of engineering. So plant engineers are heavily involved in long-term planning. And so the plant engineers perform cost-benefit analysis to determine the visibility of performing a project. They are responsible for developing 5 and 10-year capital budgets and justifications for capital projects. They deal with, they provide direction to them on the maintenance strategy for major pieces of equipment such as the boiler and the turbine. Even though long-term planning is an important piece of power plant engineering, engineers will have to perform on-the-spot troubleshooting. They'll address day-to-day pressing issues. And so every day is different, and it has a different set of challenges as well. The project engineers also provide technical support for the plant as well. So the engineering group is really responsible for the plant root cause analysis program. And this includes finding the root cause of an issue in the plant and coming up with ways to mitigate the future occurrences. So the engineers always perform technical evaluations. This includes evaluating issues to determine if there's an engineering solution to a problem. Is there a better way to execute a procedure? Is there a safer or more cost-effective alternative? And the engineers also look for equipment improvements that will make the plant run more efficiently. So the main role of a plant engineer is capital project management, and plant engineers have the opportunity to work on different types of projects, not always projects related to your educational background. So you could be a chemical engineer working on a mechanical project. A plant engineer could be responsible for a 10,000 valve replacement or a $100 million environmental project. So with capital projects, you design, reviews, the contractor supervision, and you deal with a lot of outage execution that comes along with capital project management. So kind of just a look at the power generation a day in their life. Next slide, please. You want to take this one, Judge?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways or different paths that you can choose when you're talking about that power generation engineer or going through that path. So obviously, you're going to start with your on-the-job training. We are big proponents of continuing education. So there's all the sorts of incentive for tuition reimbursement, for continuing education courses, for technical conferences and shop visits and things of that nature. And then from there, there's a couple different paths you can choose. One, you can choose to move forward into the more kind of managerial leadership side of our business, which is, you're looking to become a team leader, you're focusing on leadership conferences and classes, engaging company mentors to move you along that leadership track path. Or if you so choose, you can absolutely become that technical expert or that subject matter expert, if you will, the SME. Then you're looking at your professional engineering certification. You're looking for opportunities for reimbursement for that, of course. There's continuing education classes and conferences that you can move forward into, your SME mentoring, and of course, the license renewal reimbursement. At Southern Company, we're really big fans and really big proponents of folks who are looking to obtain that fundamental engineering license or the EIT certification, and those who move forward into the professional engineering or the PE certification. So that's something a lot of our leaders have gone through that route and look to obtain that certification. And these are just a myriad of different paths you can choose if you're looking to go through the generation career development path. So next up, we talk a little bit about power delivery and kind of how we do what we do. I showed a slide a little bit earlier on that showed how we go from generating to transmission and move forward through distribution and then eventually serve our customers. So a couple things to be mindful of here, that we have a mix of the work that we do there in both office work and also some field work that provides a little bit more technical hands-on approach to actually maintaining our transmission towers and our transmission stations. So some of the things we do at those particular facilities, of course, is we work with the control systems and the SCADA systems that actually monitor the flow of energy in and out of those facilities. Of course, we have our annual maintenance that we have to conduct, design work, construction work, and just general operating of those facilities. These work locations, of course, are based in the states where our 3 primary largest operating companies are based. Of course, Georgia, Alabama, and then in the southeastern portion of Mississippi. So after we move through that transmission process of bringing in the energy from the generation plants, will move from transmission forward into distribution. At those distribution substations, the voltage for that electricity will be cut to something much lower, much more manageable and safer for the communities that we look to serve. Again, there's kind of this hybrid mix of work that you'll do. It's a little bit more field focused here as opposed to the transmission work. You'll be looking to provide electricity directly to our customers. And as we say, keep the lights on. The type of work, of course, that we'll do, you're going to have a lot of customer interaction. You're talking about, large subdivision development, running the electrical cables and electrical wires into those developments. Of course, you'll hear this phrase in terminology if you choose to move forward into the electrical industry, the dreaded storm duty, which can require after hours work and some long extended hours of work whenever we have hurricanes or other storm issues that may come into our service territory. Our responsibility is to serve our customers. So a lot of that work is 24-hour around the clock maintenance to ensure that if we do have some of our lines that are damaged during those storms, that we have the boots on the ground to repair them as quickly as possible to get the lights back on, and also to ensure that we protect our facilities so that if we do have down lines, we do have issues that occur, that we can mitigate those, repair those as quickly as possible. Again, that work is primarily in the states of Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, specifically the southeastern portion of Mississippi. This distribution work, this is the work that you'll see when you're in your home or when you're in your community and you see those Georgia Power, Alabama Power trucks. This is the work that they're primarily working on, is serving, directly serving our customers. So next we talk a little bit about, the part that's near and dear to Stacy and I's heart, the gas side of the business. So Stacy, did you want to kind of start here and jump in on the back end?
We'll tag team. Thank you, Jeff. So Southern Company Gas is comprised of, we've got 4.2 million customers. That's residential, commercial, and industrial. And we have what they call local distribution centers. So in Georgia, it's Atlanta Gas Light, Chattanooga Gas, Illinois, Nicor Gas, and then in Virginia Natural Gas. And these are large pipeline investments throughout the US. So we deal with a lot of liquefied, which is what we call LNG, and then a lot of compressed natural gas, CNG facilities. Now we do have other parts of our business as well. We have a midstream wholesale where we buy and sell energy, kind of like boiler room, and everyone's yelling. And then we we have what we call EVGS. Did I say that correctly, Judge?
Yeah.
Within California. So our footprint's a little bit broader and bigger in all types of different states. But, let's focus, today I want to focus on kind of the engineering world within Southern Company Gas. And so when we think about bringing on our entry-level engineers, typically we bring them on within our engineering design group. And I could be here in Georgia, in Atlanta, or in Naperville, Illinois, or even in our Virginia office. So, but we're going to talk about engineering design, and then we'll talk about Office of Corporate Engineering, and kind of take it from there. Judge, take the next one away.
So from an engineering design perspective, and this is the area where I started my gas career, there's a couple things that we do. Obviously, we are going to support company design and project management of the myriad of different facilities that we own and operate. Of course, the natural gas main that carries the pipe directly to a customer's service, which carries the gas directly to a customer's meter set, which will lower the pressure going into a customer's home to ensure that we're operating natural gas safely. So we have those large pressure regulating facilities, pipeline facility replacements. Of course, we have our regional operations support and our field operations group. And oftentimes, whenever the Department of Transportation is looking to do work in the right of way, we will have to relocate our facilities or move our facilities in accordance with the work that they're looking to do via either roadway improvements or stormwater improvements. We may have to relocate our facilities. So we do a lot of DOT, customer-driven relocation work. And lastly, of course, long-term system modeling. We will actually use hydraulic modeling software to provide pretty accurate estimates of how the natural gas will move through the system, and to do 5, 10, and 15-year progressions of customer growth to determine how to best serve a particular community. So that kind of large, high-level capacity planning. One thing you'll notice in our industry is that natural gas percentages are growing. Natural gas usage is growing across the United States, and Stacy alluded to it a little bit. So this is one of the more important portions of the work that we do to ensure that as our customer base grows, as the need for natural gas grows, as the need for cleaner, more affordable energy grows, that we are effectively modeling for that increasing and projected increases to capacity.
Thank you.
Yeah, go on, sir.
Okay, I think so. Judge we talked about engineering design, and now we'll talk a little bit about Office of Corporate Engineering. These are more of our experienced engineering teams, and they support the company's design and project management of our LNG, liquefied natural gas, and CNG, compressed natural gas facilities. So they deal with a lot of different compressor stations. They deal with the transmission pipeline and stations. They deal with the renewable gas facilities. They deal with natural gas storage facilities. These are very large projects they typically work on. They do have some smaller projects, and when I say smaller, meaning that the lifespan of it is a year, I believe, which in the engineering world I think is very short turnaround, where they deal with some of the fueling stations, if I'm not mistaken, Judge, right?
Yep.
And so, right. And so let me back up a little bit. Our theory is the best engineer is a well-versed engineer. And so what we really rely on is that you should be going into all different parts of the organization, okay? When it talks about from an engineering. So whether that's starting off in engineering design, but then going into Office of Corporate Engineering, but then going into field operations. And those are the guys and gals that you see that actually deal with the meters and turn the gas on and off, and then going into construction operations. And as the judge told you, he went into safety as well. So our vice president of engineering is very big that engineers should be well versed within a lot of different areas within the organization. So I'm gonna put that out there. Judge, on you.
So Stacy talked a little bit about some of the long-term projects. And I alluded a little earlier about the pipeline capacity work that we often find ourselves doing. And again, as Stacy mentioned, those are the more experienced engineers, the engineers who have done their cycle through some of the various other operating groups and engineering design groups. So they're looking at transmission pipeline and integrity work. The Illinois Department, the Department of Transportation requires that we inspect our large transmission pipelines annually to ensure that they are not, that they're still operating in the way that they were originally designed, that they're not operating at a higher capacity than what they were originally designed for. So we do an inline inspection of those pipelines. You'll hear the term pigging, where we literally will take a piece of machinery and run it through the pipe to ensure that there's no defects or integrity issues with the pipeline that could cause rupture or failure. And of course, we have the management of those large transmission pipelines. We're talking 26-inch, 36-inch pipelines that transmit the natural gas across state lines and throughout the state and throughout our local distribution companies. Those projects are often kind of spearheaded by the collaboration of the engineering groups. You'll have some folks from engineering design who, some young engineers that may bring in for development and for experience. And of course, those projects will be spearheaded by the group that Stacy previously mentioned, the Office of Corporate Engineering. So we do a lot of work there. It's primarily integrity work, primarily work to ensure that the pipeline that we operate is safe and that it's free of imperfections and free of any issue that could cause issues later on down the line for either us as a company or for our customers. So that really concludes our presentation. And we shared a lot of information, a lot about the electrical side of our business, a lot about the renewables, and of course, the natural gas side of our business, and the energy portfolio that Southern Company provides. So Stacey and I both, we're very proud of the work that we do and the span that we have reached as a company, and looking forward to answering you guys' questions now if you have any.
All right, thank you very much, Stacey and Judge, for that wonderful presentation. We're now going to take questions from the audience. So if you could please post questions on the YouTube chat, we will have a Q&A session. I will go ahead and get things started with the Q&A. I have some experience in natural gas, not too much experience in transmission. So I have some questions about the transmission of natural gas and potentially other future derivatives of natural gas as well. You ended, Judge, talking about the integrity of the lines. My question to you is, how often do you find yourself having to maintain the lines in terms of, do you find defects often? Do you have issues with the lines often? And how difficult is it to replace? And then second, could you envision transporting other fuels? For example, if you think towards a hydrogen economy going forward and reforming of natural gas to produce hydrogen, is that something that your transmission lines would be well suited for? Or would you need to kind of reinvent the wheel again? Go ahead. That's all.
So to answer your first question, how often do we maintain those lines and how often do we find defects? We're required by the government to Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Transmission Authority, or PHMSA, as the acronym is called. We're required to inspect and maintain those transmission facilities annually. So certain facilities we will literally look at and identify and may find issues, but we envision and we consider the pipeline that we own, we refer to them and envision them as assets. No different than a home, or no different than a car, or no different than any other assets you may have in your investment portfolio. With that thought in mind, your home requires annual maintenance and upkeep. Some issues you may find can be the result of weather. It can be the result of someone else doing work near our pipelines. It could be the result of maybe even a manufacturing defect that may have come from the factory that was not caught at some point in time. It could be recalls on some of the equipment or the fittings that we may have on our pipeline. So when we envision our pipeline, we envision it no different than a home that you may live in, or the car that you may drive, or the assets you may have in your investment portfolio. All of them require maintenance. All of them require upkeep. All of them require the special attention and not to be cheesy here, but the love that you need to, and the concern that you need to have for the investments to ensure that they're functioning in the way that you intended. So do we find defects? Periodically, yeah, we'll come across issues. The one thing that you can be assured of is that when we do find those issues, we work diligently to mitigate those. And then if we find that it's something, we'll do the background research to ensure that if this is an issue here, to make sure it's not an issue somewhere else along that leg of pipe, or even in another state or local distribution company. In regards to your second question of, do we envision transporting other materials in our pipeline? Our transmission pipelines are high-grade steel, and depending on the operating pressure, that determines the intensity or the thickness or the inside and outside diameter of that pipeline, as well as the steel composition. So obviously higher pressured main will require a greater density of steel pipeline to transmit that gas. So can we transport other materials through our facilities? Absolutely. We don't necessarily envision that happening too soon, but that option is always there. I can remember doing research some years ago before I came to the utility company, and back in the 50s, I believe, when we were still we shifted actually from installing copper main to installing steel main, purposely with the intention that if for some way, somehow we needed to transport other fluids or other chemicals to our pipeline, that we could do so with minor inconvenience to how we run our operations. So it's an option for us at some point if that should ever occur.
Thank you. All right, we have a
Judge.
question from the audience. Excuse me, go ahead, Stacey.
I wanted to address Professor Miller's question, if that was okay. in regards to, and Judge, chime in on this for the students, is there anything in particular the students can do to better prepare themselves for their career in the power industry? Judge, what would be your thoughts on that?
Obviously do well in school. You want to always ensure that you are working diligently to achieve as much as you can in your academic field. Keep some of your textbooks. I know you may have the desire to sell those as soon as the class is open, but it's always helpful to be able to refer to those when you run into certain situations. Stay inquisitive. One of the big things about engineers is we like to tinker, and we like to think, and we like to try to figure out issues and maybe even reverse engineer problems to try to figure out how to better solve them. Be open-minded. I would encourage you as well. The utility industry is not it's not as glamorous as some other industry may be right now. It's not, the high-powered consulting world. It's not investment banking where, you're, buy or sell. But one of the things that I've always championed and always really been fond of is the fact that, the phrase that we keep the lights on. And when you think about the work that we actually do, we provide energy to folks who need it, whether that be through heat or whether that be through making sure that when you flip the switch, that light comes on and that light works. In other parts of the world, they don't have that luxury of hitting a switch or turning on the water and getting warm water. So I feel very passionately about the work that we do. And I, would encourage anyone, always consider, the energy industry. And it may not be, the high powered world of investment banking, but it's a place where you can ensure that the work that you do immediately impacts the world and benefits the people.
Thank you. We have a few more questions from the audience. I'd like to bring to your attention a question from a master's student in our department named Kasai Nalawala. And his question is, do you hire international students?
So at this point in time, we do not sponsor. And so, yeah, and hopefully at some point in time that will change. But as of right now, if it would deem that hiring would require a sponsorship, the company does not sponsor at this point in time. I hope I answered that.
And we have another question from Professor Steve Miller. And the question is, can you please tell us more about the rotation program for new engineers? How does this benefit new employees in their future career goals?
So yes, so as earlier stated, majority of our entry-level engineers who come in through engineering design group. We then usually between 18 to 24 months rotate them into maybe Office of Corporate Engineering, or they rotate into field operations, or they rotate into construction operations. I will say that there's a very thin line between the construction operations side and also the engineering side. And that's just for you to be able to better understand the projects and the different types of work that go on. Just seeing the component of how am I going to build the pipe, right? That functionality of it. So it's usually between 18 to 24 months that they rotate. And then by that time, usually when they've done like 3 or 4 different rotations, the engineer themselves have a kind of, okay, this is what I kind of really like to do, right? And so our VP is just very big on the fact that that's, you don't just stay in one area. I mean, Judge, have you gone through anything like that with the rotation? I don't know if NICOR has it per se, but.
Well, and it's more unofficial at NICOR, but yeah, we've gone through both engineering design, system planning and engineering, and typically from there you'll go into the construction operations, the in-field operations or system operations, and the individuals that do make the full extent of the rotation, so to speak, those tend to be the individuals who will find themselves being promoted fairly quickly and find themselves with greater responsibilities and opportunities to have a bigger impact on the company. So.
Thank you. We have another question from Lei Lin, and the question is, can you please share more about your co-op programs? What are things we can do here at the University of Florida to support?
So Southern Company has, we have a campus recruiting department, and that, so I don't know the ins and outs of the entire co-op piece. I can tell you that I know on the other side, on the electricity side, generation of nuclear, they have a full co-op rotation program. And it's actually for all of Southern. Gas is a little bit, we just haven't really implemented the co-op piece yet, but I can definitely leave some information for our talent acquisition team that specifically deals with the co-op program.
Thank you. I have another question, and it's related to how diverse your company is. I was impressed with all of the different avenues that you span. And I know a lot of oil and gas companies recently been impacted by COVID-19. And I was curious if you could talk about maybe some of the impacts, positive or negative, that COVID-19 has had on Southern Company Gas. In terms of bottom line, or however you want to interpret that question.
Well, I think primarily the biggest impact that we've had is how we have served our customers. So for the most part, we have not prevented or not been prevented from serving our customers. We just had to kind of innovate and rethink how we do what we do. So whether it's providing additional PPE for our mechanics who interact directly with our customers, a lot of our large offices, we have restricted admission to our large offices, and the vast majority of our workforce now is working remotely. I mean, even now I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home conducting this interview. So the biggest thing is we've tried to ensure that we are not only protecting our employees that are still working and maintaining our electrical lines and our towers and our substations and our transmission and distribution gas facilities, but also protecting our customers. So for those employees that do interact with customers and contractors and developers on a day-to-day basis, we provided them with gloves and face coverings and eyewear and face masks and PPE and full body suits for those who may have to go into customers' homes to ensure that we're not transmitting any of the virus and that we're not also submitting ourselves to transmission of the virus. So those are some of the biggest impacts that we've had. From an operating perspective, we're still conducting business as usual. We just had to tweak the way we're doing it a little bit.
And we also, really took into consideration our customers. I mean, we didn't do any turnoffs. Everyone's gas is still going. And so one of the biggest, things for us was the customer.
Yeah, thank you. We have kind of a follow-up question related to this from Professor Scott Banks. And his question is, given that we all need electricity and gas, is it safe to assume that your plans for hiring engineers remain strong despite the pandemic and the economic disruption that it resulted?
That is correct, Professor Banks. Yes. And so to be honest with you, I just hired maybe I did some newly recent grads and then of course some that had experience. But yes, while the work still has to get done, right? That's not going to stop. And so yes, we are still aggressively and actively seeking engineers. It's died down a little bit, I'll tell you very honestly, because I did that huge, part of that was from our rate case as well, right? But we filled a lot of spots, and I have always had engineer positions, especially within design, because remember we told you that that's meant for you to be able to rotate out at some point in time. That's just the way it's set up. So yes.
Thank you. We have a question from Professor Steve Miller, and this is related to your vision for future power production. And the question is regarding future power production, nuclear gas, coal, wind energy. What is your view of which one will grow in the future? And based on this growth, are there areas students should focus on?
So I think there's a couple things there, and there's a few things to be mindful of. Obviously, we are as a nation, we are actively moving towards a low to no emission or carbon emissions future. That's the goal. One thing you'll find is that all energy companies are looking forward to moving towards that direction. One of the positive things that Stacey shared a little early on is just how large of a portion natural gas is now of our energy portfolio, whereas some 10 years ago, it was predominantly and overwhelmingly coal. Since that time, we have actively taken the necessary steps to close down some of those ash ponds, to revise and to make some of those coal-fired power plants, gas-fired power plants, to kind of champion the usage of cleaner, also renewable energy resources, whether that be wind, solar, or water. So which one will, quote unquote, win the energy games? Whichever is cleanest. I think that's probably the safest way to move. One thing to note, though, is that all of these things will take time. Obviously, we have a great, like an overabundance of our infrastructure that is focused on using certain types of resources to generate energy. So it's going to take some time, but whichever is cleanest, most efficient, and most abundant is probably going to win.
And I think Ray said, Southern Company itself, we set a goal for 2050 to have net zero emissions. And so, but look, that's 2050. What year are we in right now? So, so you're right, Judge, it will take time, but it's the goal that we've set as a company.
As an add-on to that comment, does that net zero emissions include potentially sequestering, if you want to use natural gas, sequestering the carbon that's generated as a result of potentially reforming the natural gas, producing hydrogen, sequestering CO2, or is that just going all to renewables completely?
I don't know. I think, I'm referring to it as reducing the greenhouse kind of gas emissions, right? Close to zero. And balancing that out. And so, it could be the equivalent amount of greenhouse gas reduction, and this is just me saying this. So I don't know what that, where that goes with it, but I just know that that's something that we, as a company, we're committed to.
Thank you. We have a question from Lei Lin, which says, when you hire our recent graduates, what are the critical competencies you are looking for?
So when we hire recent grads, we understand that they don't have a plethora of work experience, right? But we want to see initiative. I want to know that you've done some type of intern or co-op program, and that you're actually interested in what we do. I tell, when they come in for the interviews, do some research on the company. I'll never forget it. I'll tell you this very honestly. I probably shouldn't say this. When I first came to interview, we were AGL resources at the time. I'll never forget, the VP of HR said, you do know this is a gas company. So, you've got to be able to know the audience, what we're doing. And so I would just say do a little bit of research on it, because it's really going to be about then the culture and the fit of the company. And we've got a great culture within our company. So, Judge?
You can turn on your mic.
My apologies, forgive me. So I would encourage to just echo Stacey's sentiments. Obviously, you want to have some knowledge of the industry that you're looking to work in. I can speak from my background. I started my career fresh out of undergrad with a civil engineering degree, looking to do like large land development projects. So wanting to build buildings and roads and bridges and things of that nature. I desired a career in the energy industry, so I took the time to invest in my education. So one of the biggest benefits that we have is, company websites now are so built out with information about what they do and how they do. When I was an undergraduate, we didn't have these platforms where professionals would come in and often share their life experiences and their professional experiences and give those tidbits and those steps that you can take. So these sort of platforms that allow you to learn more about an organization, learn more about their energy mix in their portfolio, that allows you a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, of the inner workings of the organization. Investing in your own education. And then I always tell engineers, just remain inquisitive, remain, just keep that same energy that drove you to engineering in the first place. You want to keep that throughout the course of your career. Even when you find yourself in what may be a career lull or lag, if you're in the same role for more than a year or 2 years or 3 years, always look for opportunities to not only innovate, but to ask that age-old engineering question is, how can I make this better? If you continue to keep that thought at the forefront of your mind, then you'll be prepared for any role that we have at Southern Company.
Thank you. I have maybe 1 or 2 technical questions, probably best suited for you, Judge. And the first one is coming back to our discussion of the different energy mixes that you have and your 2050 goals. One of the really challenging aspects to renewables in general is the fact that the energy is available when it's there and it's not when you don't have it. The sun's not shining during the nighttime. And I may have missed this in your presentation, but is Southern Company also looking at different types of storage solutions for renewables, such as wind and solar? And if so, what are those avenues that you're looking at?
So I can answer the first part of your question definitively. We are actively looking at those storage solutions. The unfortunate thing is I don't have a great deal of visibility to them, so I can't really speak to what they may look like. But obviously that's the same challenge that we're all facing with renewables, is how can we take that solar, store it, house it, and use it for when we need it? How can we take that hydroelectric energy, store it, and use it for when we need it? That's an age-old question. I know we have some storage capacity built into our substations where we move from transmission to distribution of electrical energy. I just don't know enough about those actual to speak to them intelligently.
Thank you. All right, we're going to wrap this up with a final question from Professor Scott Banks, unless I hear any other questions coming in on the YouTube chat. The question is, we hear a lot about AI and machine learning. Is Southern Company investing in or using those kinds of tools and or hiring people to develop them in the energy sector?
So in regard to yes. So yes, and we are actually having some, I think we've got a PRF out right now. So some stuff is definitely coming down the pipeline on that, because the reality is we've got to keep up with the times, right? And there's going to be different ways of doing things, and we've got to be able to make sure that we change that. And so the answer is that yes. I don't know about hiring people to develop them in the energy sector from a Southern Company, but I know that we are looking at different tools to be able to utilize.
Absolutely, and so absolutely in line with what Stacy just shared. One of the things that we're actively talking about, and you'll hear terminology and the phrase thrown around a lot more, is development of the smart grid. And that smart grid, it allows us to effectively maneuver and transmit that electrical energy throughout our service territory. So that's something that we are actively developing. Those departments and those individuals who are looking to develop that artificial intelligence of how to best allocate energy and where, and if a certain neighborhood is not using that electrical energy at the same rate as another, how do we balance that out to ensure that we're not wasting energy or wasting resources, but still being able to serve our customers when they need to be served. So that is something that is currently being developed. In Georgia, I believe at Georgia Power, they have a smart community that they built that is completely wired, completely electrical, and completely in sync with the World Wide Web, so that you can turn your lights on and off from the comfort of your own cell phone, or that you can turn the water on or turn on other parts of your utility or operate the entire home using artificial intelligence. So I believe that community is in Georgia, and it's kind of a collaboratory project between both Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light.
All right, thank you. All right, everyone. At this time, our presentation and discussion comes to a close. I want to thank you all, especially our speakers, Stacy and Judge, for taking their valuable time to talk to us about Southern Company Gas. I want to thank you all for asking questions and staying engaged. We will be launching another episode of the MAE Speaker Series next week, so please look out for that, and have a great day and great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.